Welcome to You Are Hired. The program is produced by DragonEagleTV, which is a platform providing job opportunities, career advice, mentorship, HR legal updates, and workforce development information and strategies to employees and employers. This program will discuss the process of making career changes, address the challenges of financial impacts, and help you navigate your job transition by providing strategies on how to utilize your strength to a new role. My name is Lisa Gray. With me is my co-host, Grace Lee. Grace Lee will introduce today's speakers. Grace, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lisa, for the introductions. Today's program is to focus on how to successfully transit to a different career stage. It is a very timely topic with the uncertainty of the economy and the advancement of technology. The landscape of career path today is very different than before. It is no longer a straight path upward. It could be a zigzag path, or sometimes we even have to step back in order to move forward. I am very excited that we have three highly accomplished corporate executives to share with us with their journeys today. Their journeys are very different from one another, but we can identify with some or all of their challenges they faced. We hope today's program will help you and inspire you if you are facing similar challenges. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our esteemed panelists who will share their backgrounds with themselves. So we'll go ladies first. So Soraya Kim Larkin, the Division President of H2 Power. Would you please introduce yourself?
Thanks, Grace, and hello, everyone. Soraya Kim Larkin here. Currently, I am the division president for a company called H2 Power Co. It is a company that is offering off-grid hydrogen solutions. And as you know, there's a lot that's happening in hydrogen. So very excited to be leading that team. We do have, actually, currently all of our team members are ex-Ford retirees, and I've been able to lure some of them over. So I'm really excited about the depth of the expertise that we have. When I was at Ford, I was the chief of staff to the CTO and also the director of strategic partnerships for research and advanced engineering. And in that role, I was leading the university research for the company, government research, operations in our Palo Alto, Israel, Dearborn and Atlanta office, and supporting the CTO and the strategy communications for all of research and advanced engineering. Prior to that, I was the Chief Innovation Officer at the American Center for Mobility, which is a 500+ acre test facility for connected and autonomous vehicles here at Willow Run. That is a public-private partnership. And so my role there was to secure strategic partnerships, so including Microsoft, AT&T, Ford, Toyota, Hyundai, Siemens, Subaru, and the like. And so that was my role. I am an M&A attorney by training, a little bit different. And so when Grace talks about zigzag, that was definitely my career. So we'll share a little bit more about that, I guess, into this session. Thanks.
Thank you, Soraya. So next, Sun-Lasovage, the Chief Human Resource Officer for Hyzon Motors.
Thank you, Grace. Thank you, Lisa, and thanks for this opportunity. I started with my career in China, and as an engineer, I went to a very, very good engineering school, but I found my passion is broader, and I have a lot of curiosity to explore in management, culture, and people development. So I went to the first pivot of the career and went to try the first joint venture companies industry actually in China in the 1990s, hotel industry. I joined Hyatt. I really had fun and did various of roles, and then eventually went to human resources, and then I stick with it. I went to Singapore after Hyatt and did regional HR work, transformation, and development, right, culture and human development. And after that Singapore's experience, I came to US for my master's in human resources and industrial relations. That was year 2000. Since then, I worked for companies like Dow Chemical and SC Johnson across chemical industry, as well as consumer industry in various of locations. They're all global company across US and Asia. I did various of roles, and the last few were head of HR for different companies, small and large. And currently am working for Hyzon Motors. It's a hydrogen-powered trucks based in Chicago and Michigan, this location. And I'm going to share with more of career transition in the later questions, but that's just a brief background of my past. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Richard, Vice President and General Managers of BorgWarner, the North American regions.
Thanks, Grace. So quickly, a few words on myself. Firstly, thanks to everybody for the opportunity today. I joined BorgWarner 3 years ago, currently serving as a VP General Manager. I'm responsible for North America Regional P&L as one of the emission turbo business unit. Prior to BorgWarner, I served as a global steering committee member, president of the business unit within Delphi Automotive. And then generally, I perceive myself as a kind of long-term, more than 25 years ago, more than 25 years service, employee working for automotive tier 1 business environment, running typically P&L, driving the top line revenue growth, creating the bottom line margin expansion year over year. So that's really how I perceive what I do. Overall, I cut it my career in 2 pieces. First major piece, like 20 years, I was born and started my career in China, and also working for different tier 1 automotive companies until 6 years ago. So I got a global assignment under Delphi. I moved my whole family, myself, changed a swimming lane now, into the working and living in the US until now. Once again, being good for being participating in the session today.
Thank you all for your introductions. So Lisa.
Thank you so much for the introduction. It's very impressive. My first question goes to Sue. Your undergraduate degree was in engineering, but you took a detour to HR. Can you tell us why you made the turn and how the 2 paths help you navigate your journey?
Thank you, Lisa. Really, when I started a career in engineering, I know I did well, but I also really did not know what I wanted to do, in my early 20s. So my advice is to take a risk and try different things. So I left the state-owned company, and back then they called iron rice bowl, 铁饭碗. So I broke that, and I left for the first joint venture industry American company. That was really a new thing, and I tried different things. I really learned so much with the Hyatt, and I did not know my passion is in there until the leaders of the hotel, and they told me that I think this training officer role, it really suits you because people listen to you and you have a systematic thinking and you could speak English and all that. So it was really great to start human resources journey from training perspective. And then since from there, then you can explore, right? And I really found helping organization to change culture, to learn, and my self journey to develop myself into country roles, regional roles, and then global roles is a journey by itself of learning. And that's how I stick with human resources, because I love to help people to grow and to learn and to transit, to pivot into whoever they want it to be. And that's where my passion, and take some risks and find your passion, find how you can help people. And that's my journey.
Soraya, you were a young and upcoming lawyers at GM, but like many women, you decided to step back on your career and put the family first. Was it difficult for you to make the decisions? How did you stay current during this period? And how did you convince the employers that your knowledge and skill set is up to date when you decide to return to workforce full time?
Great question, Grace. Yeah, this is a very personal question for me. Taking time off when I didn't really want to take time off away from working. I think in hindsight it was very good, but similar to Sue, going from one career to another, it was, I guess, predestined. But I would say that this is a very difficult time for women. Right? Many women do take time off, whether it's to raise children or whether it's to, take care of parents. And then during that time, they often don't really continue to develop themselves, right? And so coming back into the workforce is challenging. So there were some things in hindsight that I did and some things that I now look back and say I should have done. So what I did do, though, was I kept up professionally. I set up my own law practice and continued to take continuing education courses. So professionally, I try to stay in touch with that. I also got a real estate broker's license, which I've never used, but I have it should I ever want to buy or sell property. And then the other thing I did was I did a lot of networking. I volunteered in, organizations. For example, it was I volunteered down at the Neighborhood Legal Services of Michigan, which is to help, vulnerable and fragile people and families. Grace, you and I met at Sparks Economic Development, which is, I think, the first time we may have met. And then from there, continuing to do volunteer work. We were appointed to the Michigan Asia Pacific American Affairs Commission, right? And also NAP, we worked on the National Asia, the Professional Network, right? So I think it's really important to continue to stay engaged and volunteer and make sure you're professionally up to date. What in hindsight, what I wish I had done more of was to take actual courses that would help me in the in corporate world, right? So for example, I wish I had been more up to speed on computer skills, right? So when I came back into the world, they were doing video conferences, just and invite, maybe not video conferences at the time, but they were certainly inviting, right, to meet and to have sharing screens and things like that. I wish I had been more comfortable coming back into the world with those kinds of tools. And so I would really encourage, if you have been out of the working world for a while, to take community college courses or any courses online. There are so many courses online, whether it's LinkedIn or Coursera. There are so many courses that you can continue to improve your skills. Especially things like we've now transitioned to, OneDrive and SharePoint. I mean, those are not words that were around, 3, 4, 5 years ago. And if you've been out of it, you've got a pretty steep learning curve. So I would encourage people to take those courses so that their transition back into the corporate world is much more smooth and comfortable.
Richard, it's a very uncommon for someone who does not have a U.S. academic degree to be promoted directly from a division in China to the U.S. leadership position. Can you share your journey and what do you think sets you apart from other employees?
Yeah, Lisa, thanks for the question. It is. I mean, if I recall that journey, it was a profound, unforgettable journey. I still recall, time when I was working in Shanghai, when I joined Delphi, 6, 7 years ago, my first job in China I was responsible for Delphi Asia Pacific, the whole region. And after a while, Delphi came to me saying, "Hey, Richard, look like you doing good job in Asia. However, in order to continuously grow your career and being a global player, we perceive you kind of missing global exposure, and you have been always working within your own territory, your own comfortable zone, so to speak. So what about instead of running Asia, go out and try to run another region, for example, North America?" I can tell you, Lisa, at that time, without blinking my eyes, I said yes. Why not? So that's really how I ended up in alone in Michigan. I think it was right from the beginning, extremely steep learning curve to me. If I now look at it back 6, 7 years ago, business-wise and personal-wise, right? So, I used to live like 20 years in the mega city, Shanghai, and versus what a sudden landed in Detroit. Life-wise, it was slightly different, right? And then personally, I recall you have to learn, you feel what a sudden you become foolish, because I need to learn very tiny things from zero, like how to refill your car in the gas station. That's very much different versus how you do in China, for example. And then business-wise, of course, I recall the very first day I walked into the meeting room, encountered first time with my team. Therefore, I look at the people in my team in the meeting room. I say 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3. The people in their eyes, the 1/3 of people which I knew back to my Asia time. I see the warm, welcoming, friendly, basic message saying, "Hey, welcome, Richard. Come on, join us. Let's repeat successful again." Another 1/3, I see the people, a lot of question marks, basically, I guess, saying, "We don't know this guy. Who the hell the guy is coming from? Therefore, I hire 30,000 people in North America. Where this guy is coming from, right? Okay, he's just gonna stay maybe half a year and do a little bit gold cutting, and then he will return back to China." The last 1/3 people I see in the room is completely, empty. I don't see anything. Basically, I guess the people they don't really care, and they say, this is just one of the many quick lander, job hopper, internal job hopper guy. We don't care. We just need to wait another 3 months, and a new successor will come. So that's really how I started, right? But once again, takeaway now, answer your question. Looking back, I would say a few things. Firstly, I do believe human being fundamentals by the end of the day are the same. So doesn't matter the color, the gender, whatever the background. The human being basics, the fundamentals are the same. One. Secondly, I believe being a business leaders within organization, result counts everything. So result is everything. Whatever you do, wherever you do, result is everything, right? And lastly, I also believe, of course, you got to be aware, you got to be thoughtful. There is a culture different. There is a history different. There's a behavior different. So be aware and be thoughtful for whatever the new environment with the team, with the behavior, with the people, right? So I would say those are the quick, some key takeaways I got from that kind of swimming lane change journey, Lisa.
Thank you, Richard. Very, very good. Very interesting to learn about your backgrounds. Next question is a very big topic, communication, which we probably can discuss it by itself in the whole sessions. So we're going to breaking the questions to 2 parts. First, for Richard and Sue, great communication is an essential element for moving up in the corporate world. And since English is not your native language, can you share with, how did you master your communication skills, especially in the corporate world?
I don't think I mastered communication, but I'm still working on it. As an engineer, transition to human resources, not only language, but also thinking, right? And problem solving to articulation. I had various of challenges, and not only from language and career transition, but also culture. As my number one lesson is, we grew up in Asia, right? We grew up in a culture of you talk less, you do more, right? And so that's how Asia, pretty much our culture is. So we were not having a lot of communication classes and all that to do that. And many times we do the things, we solve the problem, and we haven't even communicated, but we are so fast, we already solved the problem. But that's a disadvantage in this culture. And also is a disadvantage as you grow into leadership roles. So as I recall the past many years, especially when I became a people leader in the US, and coming to a director level and above roles, and communication has been the number one thing I got feedback on, and also number one thing that I'm working on. It's not easy, especially in the human resources area. And you just have to work on it. You get mentor, you read about it, and you slow down, and then you think about how to inspire people, how to frame the things, and slow down doing, not to say you don't deliver, but meaning that how do you explain your different thinking, because you came from a different culture, you have a different mindset, especially you lived in a few countries, and your way of doing things is an essence of many things that you've learned. So how do you really articulate that and inspire that and bring people along with it? It's really the number one thing on my agenda, because we are strategic, we know how to do things, we know how to problem solving. So that has been what I'm working on. I'm still working on it. And the last thing I wanted to say is, sometimes you still, when you learn communication, but you still have to keep true to yourself and know who you are, what can you can value to the organization. For example, when you work for organizations that they only value communication, presentation skills, and all that, and the result is not as important as how you communicate, that's probably not suited for you, right? So, and there are organizations that value delivery results, and those organizations are normally winning organizations, right? Because they promote people who may not be the best articulator, but the doers. So just be patient and still keep your strength, work on your communication, but know where it best suits for you, and you can get promoted faster, and you can get recognized faster, and you can make an impact faster.
Yeah, those are great points, Sue, appreciate. I mean, a few words more just to add from my end. Firstly, I do love this question, especially I feel it's a valid question to every non-native English speakers like us, right? Working and living in North America. I recall my own journey. We used to start to learn English from high school or junior school, and then every day we remember the words and we try to write something in English. Then we thought, okay, then we know English, right? We speak English. As a minute you landed in the US, Detroit airport, first 5 minutes you get lost when you talk to somebody. Then you say, what the hell? This is not how I used to learn and how I used to get used to the English. So really, I feel, just to echo on what you said, Sue, I feel communication, my takeaway, again, working for an organization, being you got to lead the team, you got to motivate the team. I have 3 key points I want to share. Firstly, I do agree with you. I think communication, when it comes to communication, we got to over-communicate all the time. There's never enough communication. We got to always over-communicate, right? Repeatedly, overly communicating. That's the one essential point, I would say one. Secondly, I think, once again, as a non-native English speaker, it's our job. It's our responsibility. We are accountable for ourselves to make ourselves understood by the others. Despite the accent, despite whatever the original background. So you got to make yourself understood by the others in any way. How can you make it, right? Thirdly, I also would like to see, we also need to accept the fact, I accept the fact, again, I'll be never able to speak like a CNN speaking, like Fox. I understand that and I accept that. I accept that my English has always accent. I don't care. I think as long as I hit the number one and number two, then I think that then we are making a sufficient communication, right? So those are the few just added on to what Sue just mentioned.
That was a great summary. Next, I would like to ask Soraya. Being an Asian and a woman, we usually are more introvert and polite. How do you overcome the obstacles to make sure your opinions are heard and respected?
So Lisa, I try generally not to stereotype. And while there may be a cultural overlay for many Asians, I think, Sue, you talked about speak less and do more, right? And maybe that's the Asian way. I do believe that Asians are more reserved, but I think that's changing, certainly in the next generation, right? I think the next generation is much more vocal and opinionated. And it's even different, I would say, across different Asian cultures. I think, Korean women generally they don't speak very much, right? And same with the Japanese. I'm not so sure about further west of there. But certainly minorities and Asians and women are disadvantaged. And so I want to share a story about a blonde-haired woman, an executive at Ford, who, when she was working her way up through the ranks, she said she walked into a meeting in the conference room. In the conference room, all the chairs were taken by men. And so there were some chairs on the side, and she said she sat in one of those side chairs. And as we talked more about it, we both agreed that she should have done either one of two things. One is to take the chair and excuse herself and make some, space for her at the table. Or the other is for those who are sitting at the table, whether you're male or whether you're another female, to invite her to the table. There's an obligation, I think, on people who are at the table to include Asians, women, and others who are less at a disadvantage, right? And so I think there's an obligation on both. And so I think it's really important that we do both. We take the action, and we also are invited to be included at the table. Once you're at the table, I think that we need to have a bigger voice, right? We need to listen, we need to observe, but we also need to speak up, right? And oftentimes, I think that's where a lot of Asians don't take action, right? They're a little timid because they haven't had the practice, right? They're a little timid, and back to being, whether it's reserved or speaking less or introvert, right? We need to practice speaking up because it is so important. And it's tricky, right? Because sometimes you're nodding, you're listening to other people, and they're saying what's in your head, right? And sometimes you miss the opportunity. So it's a little bit, it's a practice that you need to be very self-aware of and continue to implement. The other thing is tone, right? I really love the fact that both Sue and Richard and our hosts here are very good speakers, right? But when you're starting out, and this is all contextual, right? When you're starting out, you may be very nervous, you may not have the rhythm, you may not have the presence, right? That's all something that you need to practice and build on, right? It doesn't oftentimes come naturally. So I think if you practice all that, and always be polite, I think there's no reason not to be polite, no matter what you say, right? That you should always be polite. I think all of those things together will help you be able to speak up and to have a greater presence amongst your peers and also to your superiors.
Thank you, Soraya. That was the great point. I had similar stories. I was the board director for the Michigan Minority Supplier Development Council. And one time was at the board meetings. I think I went in late, all the chairs were taken. So I sit on the side. But I was really grateful that time that the chair for the MNSDC, she said, Grace, sit up here. So I sit up there. And then when I looking back, I should have been more aggressive, to be find the chair and move in. But that was a lesson I learned, and I have been trying to make sure, my presence at the table, because presentation is important.
What I'd like to ask is that how to change that? We change that situation. So make sure, when you in that situation, you are actually be invited to be in the center or to be on the table.
So I'd say it's context, right? Because if you are the most junior person and you're there in a support capacity, and there are others that are in support capacity, you kind of have to read the room, right? But if you are the same sort of you and your colleagues, right, are of a similar level, or even if you are meant to be at the table, you're invited specifically to discuss a subject, then I would say you have to prepare yourself, right? You don't have to be overly aggressive, right? I'm not suggesting that, but you should be, I would use the word assertive. You should assert yourself, and you should say, I belong here. I belong here at the table, right? And I think maybe it's a mindset, and it's really, I think once you take the first step outside of your comfort zone, I think it gets easier.
Yeah, I agree. Just to add one comment, I also believe besides, let's say, self-confidence and also physically, you want to position yourself in a visible location within the room. I also feel it will be extremely important what you're gonna say, right? So what are the message? What are the information? What kind of opinion you will talk about? I feel that is more important. Because even sometimes, somebody get hidden in the corner, but as long as he or she is able to speak up with very profound message, information, context, that can still wake up the whole meeting room as well, right? So, and on the other hand, you don't want yourself sitting beside the chairman and then just being a dummy, during the whole meeting. I think that's should be also the case as well.
Yeah, Richard, I totally agree with you. I think it is so important what you say. So I think you're listening, you're observing, and when you are speaking, it has to be insightful. It has to contribute, right? You're not going to be just, saying something, as you said, a dummy, being a dummy, right? And so for me, it doesn't matter whether you're the most senior person in the room or the most junior person in the room. If you have something to say and it is really insightful, it is more than welcome.
Yeah, just to build great discussion. I think 2 points just to add on. One is always prepared. No matter who you are, who's in the room, whether it's a CEO or C-suites, whatever that is, prepare the topic so that you have something to add value. And number 2 is when you make comments or wherever you sit, and don't worry about the hierarchy. Don't worry about that you are 7 layer down of the organization or 4 layer down, that you cannot add value. I think that's very, very critical, that you should forget about practice, forget about the level, but it's about the content. It's about good ideas. For good organization, they value ideas. It could come from everywhere. So be prepared and voice out your good ideas no matter where you sit.
Great advice. Oh, Richard, you changed your career focus from a technical side to management. What challenges did you encounter when you made those changes? What advice can you share with us on how to prepare for the management path?
I would say, Lisa, I started my career as a manufacturing engineering, working with the machines. But I think it all comes to what is your inspiration, right? What is your vision? What kind of person you want to be career-wise? Because I kind of made up my mind very earlier stage. I recall, when I was doing my first job, manufacturing engineer, trying to fix some machines in the night shift. Then that was a point I thought probably for the rest of my life, I would prefer really, working with the people other than just machines, right? So I mean, I don't think there's a right or wrong or good or bad choice. It's I think first question is always people. You got to answer yourself. What kind of person? If you shoot a picture for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years later, what kind of person you want to be? I think that's the first question people need to answer. The young starters need to answer, right? You want to be an engineer. You want to be leadership management. You want to be a communicator. You want to be a whatever, right? So I think we always say you have to reverse back, right? Firstly, you set up your vision. This is where you are today. You just graduated, fresh head, and you got to shoot a picture. What do you want to be 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years? That vision needs to be defined. Nobody can do that for you. You got to do it by yourself, right? That's your inner vision, so to speak. And then you got to reverse back, right? Saying, hey, if I want to be a super engineer, so to speak, in 30 years, I want to be a second Elon Musk. I want to be better than Elon Musk in 30 years. Then what I want to become in 15 years, what I want to become in 10 years, what I want to become in 5 years, what I want to become next year, what I want to become next quarter, what I want to become next Monday, right? I think that kind of high-level roadmap will be extremely helpful for anybody who just about to kick off the career. You want to draw a kind of strategic roadmap because you will never become a better than Elon Musk engineer in 30 years if you don't hit your goal next Monday, next month, next quarter, next year, right? So I would say that's the most important thing you might want to think about, right? So that's really, I mean, Steve Jobs said, stay foolish, stay hungry. I would reform that, stay hungry, stay agile, stay open-minded. So I think now we are lucky. We're living in such a fast-changing transition world in automotive. There's many other different opportunities. For me, it doesn't matter. You are an engineer, you want to be leadership, you want to be whatever. You got to be open-minded and you got to build your own roadmap, your career roadmap. You stick on that, you keep it up, you will achieve it eventually, Lisa.
So as an HR executive, you have helped a lot of people transitions. From the HR perspective, what are the tips for those who are in between success?
Thank you. Great question. As people grow their career and in getting higher and higher positions, the higher you go up, the higher risks of those jobs, because those are very important jobs and making impact to the company, and the company will hold it accountable. So there's higher chance that either a company merge or transition, whatever that is. And nowadays, if you take a very critical role, it is unlikely that it's smooth sailing, to all the way you retire. So there's this transition. More and more people find themselves in between this transition. Some are really planned and some are not planned. For those people, I also know a lot of people who are giving people advice and they put 6 months or 9 months savings right there so that they're not afraid of losing a job, and they push for more changes and break more things, right? So those people have probably also a higher chance of transition, but probably more prepared. So my point is, no matter you are prepared or not prepared, transition is not a bad thing. And maybe for the first time of people in transition, it's kind of scary, right? Because you never stop working for a while. But it really is a great opportunity to reflect, to really think what makes you happy and why you are here today, and what do you really want to do, right? Life is short. And what is the real thing what are you good at and what makes you happy? So from there, and it's okay to live a few months differently. It's okay to branch out, to network and to try something different, and set yourself a time and to try something else different. And when you look back, the people that I helped throughout my career as my job, one of my HR job is to help people with transition as well. And most of them, I would say 90% more people look back and really think that that transition helped them to find happiness, to help them to find a better work, and to help them to know themselves better. So transition is really not a bad thing. And I myself as well had those transition, and I made different friends. I tried different things. It really is a great, if you take it positively, it's a good thing to have. It's really not bad, especially if you're risk taking, you want to try something different. Transition is not bad.
Soraya, besides working as a lawyer in your early careers, you have been involved at the forefront of technology all these times, especially in the automotive industries. How did you decide what kind of challenges you want to take next? Do you have a checklist or special goals when you are looking for your next endeavor?
So no checklist, and had no plans to be in technology at all. I thought I was going to be a partner at some law firm because that's what I was doing in Toronto, doing mergers and acquisitions. So I have a different perspective than Richard in terms of, having that vision. Well, I agree with the vision. I think it's great to have a vision and to have, milestone goals. However, for me, all of these opportunities just kind of developed independent of any specific goals or plans that I had. And so I think what Sue was saying, which is to be open, right? And to be open to different opportunities, I think really is, it's been wonderful for me. I mean, I would never have thought in all my years that I'd be certainly leading a hydrogen company, but even, working for the CTO, because that was every bit of technology across the automotive platform, right? And then also to be, the CIO at the American Center for Mobility, working on connected and autonomous vehicles. I mean, none of those were in my line of sight when I thought that I was, when I was embarking on my career. I will say, though, that I love being in the technology field, but I don't need to be really deep in it. For me, technology is really at that higher level, that overview, where I understand it sufficiently enough to be able to strategize and so forth. And so, there are other people, the tech specialists, who dig deep. I'm more wide and broad and less deep. So I think for me, it's keep open to different opportunities that arise and interests that you may have. The different doors will close and different doors will open. I think the automotive industry right now is going through a very difficult time. And so it's a good time to reevaluate and as Sue said, these transitions may actually be silver linings, blessings in disguise that you don't really anticipate. But once you are, in it, it's actually a good thing. So no specific plans after this position. I was going through a handful of different opportunities that I've worked on, and I've worked for university, I've worked for a corporate, I've worked for public-private, I've worked for myself, I've worked for all of these things, and I'm like, well, a startup is one, and I'm not sure what else. Grace, I know you and I talked about opportunities together.
Thank you all very much for very engaging, insightful and inspiring discussions. I think Lisa and I have learned so much from all of you. And we probably can have 2 or 3 more hours of discussions about this, but we have to wrap up the program. So for everyone, can you give us our audience the last advice on people who are in transition or thinking about transitioning their careers? Maybe just a little summaries for our discussion today from each one of you.
Let me, from my end, just 3 points as what I said. Stay hungry, stay agile, and stay open-minded.
Yes, I think to me, the advice is never lose sight to improve yourself and to know yourself and what makes you happy, and also network stay open-minded, like Richard said, and open for opportunities, but you got to know yourself and what makes you happy.
So both Richard and Sue have said pithy little things. For me, it's a little bit longer. I would say do something that you're really interested in and good at. And it could be totally outside of the professional field, right? So when my current boss introduces me, he says, "This is Soraya. She conquers mountains." That's the way he introduces me, right? Because that was something that he found was very impressive. So, you know, I've climbed to Everest Base Camp. I've done all these Machu Picchu, and now I'm working on the Appalachian, and I want to climb Kilimanjaro and Patagonia and that. So for him, that's like, wow, that's something that really is an impressive point, I guess, about me that he really likes. And so I think that not only it really speaks to the person and the kind of person that they are, right? And it doesn't have to be conquering mountains, but you could do something, I don't know, maybe you're into endurance events, or maybe you really like reading and, you know, you want to be a writer. I mean, there are so many other things that you could do that speaks to the kind of person that you have, different skill sets, different talents, right? And so I think you should really hone in on what that might be for you. And then the other thing is to find an advocate, right? Especially Asian Americans, right? Asian Americans, because we may not be as vocal, right? To have somebody who advocates for you, not just a coach or a mentor, but someone who advocates for you, I think is really important, because they'll be advocating for you in different situations, and that'll help you progress in your career. So I would say those two. Oh, one more thing, sorry, is to stay connected with your former bosses and colleagues, right? Never leave, you know, a bad relation, never leave it in a bad state. I think that those are the people, similar to the having an advocate. You know, I stay in good contact and have good relationships with my former bosses, and they've all been there when I've needed to bounce questions off of them. So I would say that it ties in with the advocacy, right? And then also doing something to develop your own skills and talents outside of the professional space.
And as Grace said, it was really great discussion. Thank you so much for taking your time for joining your hired program. I want to take the opportunity to thank our audience for joining us today. And please subscribe to Dragon Eagle TV for our next episode. See you.